Okay, so there's a first little rodeo to testing out the script and sort of new live chat methods with ChatGPT. So we're going to jump straight into a bit of a recap on episode one, which was the lie hiding in plain sight, or what is money. So we're going to jump straight across to full screen mode, and we're going to pop up in sort of a live video chat with George, aka ChatGPT, was being given some prompts to act like a bit of an economics analyst. So let's rock and roll. Okay, full screen mode, switch them. Here we go. Okay. Hey, George, how are you getting on?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How about you? What's on your mind today?
Yeah, I'm all good. I wanted to talk about the episode one, the lie hiding in plain sight, or what is money. Do you remember that episode pretty well?
I definitely do. That was the one where we broke down how money isn't just those notes in your wallet, but really a system of credits and trust circulating through the economy. What angle were you thinking of revisiting or expanding on?
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose I wanted to put together the importance of why looking at all money being debt created by commercial banks is something that's a bit of a shock to a lot of people, as well as me, when hearing it, and what that sort of really means about how you look at how banks operate.
It does put the perspective, doesn't it? Once you realize money is largely created as loans, it's like the whole system clicks into place. We could dive into that shock, why it's hidden in plain sight, and then break down what it means for power dynamics. It's not just banks lending, it's literally shaping who gets to participate in the economy. We can definitely unpack that more
Yeah,
in
I
a
mean, I wanted to look at someone who I think is Dr. Richard Werner, who he was someone who sort of done the first standardized sort of research about how banks actually lend. And actually, when he went into the back end, he asked them to provide like proof that they weren't using existing money, i.e., loaning out from savings or transferring it somewhere. They literally created that money when they made a loan. You think that's a bit of a shock to a lot of people? It definitely was to me.
It's a huge eye opener for most people. We're often taught this idea that banks just lend out savings, right? But when you see that loans are actually creating new deposits out of thin air, yeah, that reframes how you see the whole system. Richard Werner's findings showing how banks create money through lending pull back the curtain. Once you get that, you start asking who's deciding where that money flows and why. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah, and so as we moving into like episodes, that like breakout episode on the bank v the state, we see that the bank lends mostly to people for mortgages. 60 to 70% of money goes to property. That's often like inflating existing assets, isn't it? That's the way money works. When more money is put into certain sectors of the economy, it inflates the value of those things, isn't it, by nature?
Exactly. When the majority of new credit is funneled into property, you're essentially pumping more purchasing power into existing assets,
Mm.
and that drives their prices up, kind of like a feedback loop. It doesn't build more homes, it just makes the ones we have more expensive. So the way banks allocate credit shapes the economy. If we're mostly inflating house prices, we're not investing in productive innovation. And that's
Yeah.
a
I want to stop you on the word productive because there's a lot of people that list this in different ways. What would you say is the productive side of the economy? Do it like a system check. Give me the statistics of how much jobs they create, money that benefits through taxation for the state, and what exactly is productive versus unproductive.
All right, system check mode. Productive sectors are those that create new goods or services. Manufacturing, technology, infrastructure, small businesses. They generate jobs, think millions in SMEs alone. Taxes flow from those wages and profits back to the state. Unproductive, that's inflating assets. It might make some wealthier on paper, but it doesn't produce something new or expand productivity. In short, productive sectors make stuff, create work, and drive forward. Unproductive just swaps ownership and inflates prices. The
Mm.
state thrives on the productive side.
Yeah, and would you say the majority, because we see that in the break episode coming up, 60 to 70% of money just goes into those property bubbles. That's why some people would look at the property market and go, how the hell is it this expensive that I can probably never afford a house in 10 years if it carries on? Because too much money has been allowed to be invested into those areas. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that's exactly the concern. When so much credit flows into property, prices soar faster than
Mm.
wages or productivity. So people end up priced out or saddled with huge debt. If that pattern continues unchecked, future generations struggle to buy in. It's not that housing is inherently bad, it's that the balance is off. If we shift more lending toward productive investments, innovation, businesses, then you get growth that benefits more people long
Do you
term.
think this is part of like a European? This seems to be like a nationwide thing in the UK, but across Europe, you see the inflation of assets and homes. Do you think parts of the economy are looking at like valuing their GDP or their output on assets, but forgetting to look at the long-term value of like building businesses and infrastructure in a country?
I think that's a fair critique. In many economies, rising asset values like housing can give the illusion of growth, boosting GDP on paper. But if you're not investing in future productivity, things like businesses, infrastructure, innovation, then you're just enriching existing owners.
Yeah, and
Long term,
those that already have assets benefit from this system, isn't it? That's why it feels, should we say, tilted against that, against those people that don't own assets and against those that aren't asset owners, like myself, for example.
yeah, you got it. If the system channels wealth toward existing asset owners, it compounds inequality. Those who already own property or stocks benefit from the
Mm,
appreciation, while others find it harder to catch up.
yeah.
So it
And just to stop, because I want to make that point concrete. If we understand that that money goes to those areas, give me a few reasons why banks primarily lend for those reasons. Obviously, they're safe and secured assets, but what about the roles and responsibilities for those institutions allowing that money to move into those areas? Because it's sort of like it's almost like inflating the value of the economy through those things instead of putting it into developing the real economy.
So banks gravitate toward property lending partly because mortgages are backed by tangible collateral.
Hmm.
If something goes wrong, there's a house to repossess. That makes it lower risk from their perspective. Plus, regulatory frameworks like capital requirements often make mortgage lending more attractive on their balance sheet.
Mm.
But the responsibility of these institutions is bigger than safety. They're supposed to fuel broader economic growth. When too much goes into property, you're right. It inflates asset values instead of building real productive capacity.
Would you say it looks like over the last sort of 10, 20 years, maybe 30 since Second World War in the sort of the capital should we say restraints have been lifted from the banks, that this has gone unchecked and at a ridiculous speed for the economy to adapt to?
It does seem that way, doesn't it? Since deregulation, especially from the 80s onward, banks have had freer reign to expand credit, and much of that has flowed into assets like property.
Hmm.
That's fueled rapid inflation in asset prices, often outpacing real wages or productive growth. The speed of that shift, well, it leaves younger generations struggling to adapt.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
And if
unchecked.
and if you were a younger generation, or you're looking at this from a practical perspective, even if you just want the long-term health of the economy to be better, you have to look at the bank's responsibility of how they lend, not just obviously critiquing the state, which has a lot of criticism, which is fair, but to look at the banking sector itself too, and for its responsibility and its roles that it's created for itself.
Absolutely. If we want a healthier, more balanced economy, we have to scrutinize where banks direct that credit.
Mm.
It's not just about safety, it's about responsibility for long term growth. If lending overwhelmingly inflates assets rather than building productive capacity, we all feel the effects. Younger generations, especially, need a shift, one where both the state and the financial sector are held accountable for fueling innovation, business, and opportunity, not just asset bubbles.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I think that's a really good recap. So I'm just going to pause it there. I'll see you on the next one. Okay, little example of some of the live chats that I do with some of the AIs. Great upgraded version of ChatGPT has like the new voice, and it saves the messages in the copy in the thread, so you can pick that up and use that. So yeah, I think that's a really nice recap of episode one, where we are sort of breaching the ideas and the roles of sort of the commercial banks. But that's a little sort of one-to-one with ChatGPT. We've got others that we're going to do with AI. So keep an eye out for the next breakout episode that comes out, the Bank v the State. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Please jump in the comments, throw your opinions in. This is not me trying to drive a conversation, hopefully into conspiracy. We're trying to get to some understanding around the systems, and ideally discover things together. We can use AI to kind of leverage fact checking, statistics, maybe some assumptions if we can push it a bit harder. And I have been trying to train the AI to sort of critically make those big assumptions on behalf of the ideas that I'm sort of building. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Speak soon. Take care. Bye.